We saw you at Wembley. How is it playing to that many people?
Well, it's very exciting. It's just a beautiful atmosphere, and it's an iconic place to play. So, yeah, it's wonderful.
At one point, you pull out the guitar, and there's this kind of acoustic set. It almost feels like you're in an intimate setting.
You know, when you're really just into the spirit of the song, into connecting with the audience, it doesn't matter whether there is 100 people or 100,000 people. Once you break down that barrier between you and the listener, the scale doesn't really change that connection.
Do you have a way of breaking down the barrier for yourself?
I mean, I think the guitar element and singing alone and quiet like that is what does it for me.
Break down that barrier?
Yeah.
How so?
Because it's more of the storytelling moment, and it takes me back to the way I started as well, you know. Just me and the guitar, just a few people in the audience.
Sitting watching you there at Wembley, it was hard to imagine you suffer stage fright. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, the amount of people is not necessarily what affected me over the years with stage fright. It was starting so young in bars that were, you know, I was 8 years old and the bars were smoky and everyone was intoxicated. I'm the only child in there, and I don't know what I'm actually singing about because I'm singing about divorce and I'm 8. So this was just an uncomfortable place to be as a child, and I carried that with me. And only in my 50s, I finally just said, whoa, I've got my voice, and I have an audience. I have everything to just celebrate, and the fear just dropped away. So it's never been about how many people, it's just always been about me and not being comfortable in the spotlight. So once I got my voice back, I was just like, okay, let me just get out there and sing while I can and enjoy it.
Your mom threw you into the spotlight at a very young age. She was driving you to these bars. She knew you could sing. She loved your singing.
Yeah, my mom was my biggest fan, and she was my biggest supporter. My agent, my manager.
At age 8.
At age 8, yes. But she was also obsessed with me making it, you know, breaking the cycle and getting out of this town, and that somebody in the family would make it. But make it meaning, you know, that we would be able to pay our bills and eat every month, that sort of stuff. You know, that was making it in our family. It didn't mean fame. She wasn't thinking Hollywood. But she did believe in my talent and really thought that my talent would be what would get me making my mark.
You loved singing from a young age?
Oh, yeah. Singing was my obsession. Music was my obsession. I was learning how to write songs. I learned how to play guitar at 10 years old. I was obsessed with every element of music. I just didn't want to be in the spotlight. That was the only part that I didn't want to do. I just wanted to make music. I didn't want to be on the stage.
It's kind of hard to imagine now seeing you as you on the stage.
You know, now at this point in my life, I actually enjoy the stage for a different reason than I think my mother would have expected.
What's the reason?
One, two. I enjoy sharing the music. So I write the songs, I share my sentiments, and people respond. So I get this exchange of communication that is only possible through this. If you write a book, for example, you might not be there when the person's reading the book, so you're not getting the interaction, and what live performance does is it gives you a real-time interaction.
You did write a book. I wondered if writing your autobiography in a way paved the road to write this music for this album.
It was a cathartic experience to go back through some difficult times in my life and address them emotionally. There was a satisfying element to writing it all. It's very therapeutic. And I also thought, if I don't put all of this stuff down and I die tomorrow, my child may never know a lot of things about me. But it ended up being really good for me in my own state of mind.
In terms of processing emotions, processing what
Yes.
happened to you?
Exactly. It was like there was a weight lifted off my shoulders. Especially because when you're famous, people know you through the eyes of journalism or through the eyes of gossip or whatever. So it gave clarity to my story.
Is there a gulf in your view between the way that you are perceived and the way that you are?
No, I think I'm a pretty consistent person. I don't think I'm very different from the person I was when I started out in my career, let's say, for example. Outside of maturity, just natural life, it's more that when you're known as a celebrity, there are maybe just a lot of things people don't know. It's really more about filling in the blanks.
You've said that songwriting is your diary, your therapy. What was the process like of writing this album?
It's the first album that I've ever written with this kind of reflection. So Little Miss Twain is me now looking back at my child self and the journey that child went through from starting out in those bars at 8 years old, right up to when I got my recording contract in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, I didn't get a contract until I was in my late 20s. My first top 10 record, I was 30 already. So there's all of these years that were me making a living with singing in bars as a cover singer, collecting all of this songwriting that would end up becoming the Shania Twain records. So there was just a very long development period before I became famous that I wanted to reflect on, and I ended up making the whole album themed about that journey.
I've read that this album is the process of going from being Eileen to being Shania.
It is. It's the bridge. Every song is like a chapter in this journey of life from being Eileen to becoming Shania. And the Shania was a request from the label. So as I'm getting signed, they asked me to change my last name, which I did not want to change because that was my family name, and I felt that I would be betraying my family and an identity that I was clinging to after my parents died. So I came up with this name, Shania, and they liked it, so it was Shania Twain, but it was always Little Miss Twain before that.
How did you come up with Shania?
Well, there was a wardrobe mistress in one of the shows that I was in, and when I heard her name, I'm thinking, ooh, that's a good one. You know, that's a pretty name. I like it. I'd never heard it before. It was very unique, and I just presented it to the label and said, what about Shania Twain? And they loved it. So I guess it fell into my lap. Is probably a better way to say it.
Does anyone still call you Eileen?
Oh, yeah.
Who?
Many people, a lot of people. Most people that get to know me end up calling me Eileen.
This is your 7th studio album. Is it your most autobiographical?
Well, Little Miss Twain is the most autobiographical of that phase of my life. You know, the little girl that made it.
when you read about your childhood, when you hear about your childhood, you don't think, oh, this is going to be a happy, upbeat album, but it is.
Yeah. Little Miss Twain was a very determined little person. A lot of that determination came from me saying to myself, okay, we're hungry. We have not been grocery shopping in 3 weeks. And this is never going to happen to me when I grow up. You know, my parents are fighting, and I'm afraid they're going to kill each other. And I'm never going to be in a relationship like that when I grow up. We can't pay for our heating bills, so we are freezing, and I have no boots to wear to school in the snow. When I grow up, I'm going to make sure that I always have the right clothes. So my determination was me saying, this is where I am right now because I'm a kid and I'm stuck here because I'm independent. But when I get out of here, I'm going to have a very different life for myself. And that was music that gave that to me. So I was determined that music would make me a living, that would give me a life that was more, just a normal life, a life where you weren't struggling and where you weren't dependent on other people. So I was a very determined little girl. I had plans, man. I had plans to get out of there. I was going to make it. And so looking back on her, I smile about that. I smile on that determination. And I smile on her love for music and how wonderful it was that she had music to escape even the escapism of going through all those years of challenge and writing a song about other things that took me to places that I couldn't go at the time, or just, letting my imagination create worlds that maybe, were just relieving me of my little stress in my own world, in my realities. So I'm like, that was the gift. I look back on a girl that had a gift that saved her, and that is why I see it in a very positive light.
It's interesting because at times, as a young woman singing, it seemed like you didn't like elements of that. Being taken to these bars with your mom, being around creepy guys.
Yeah.
There were challenging moments.
There were a lot of challenging moments. Yes, being in these bars, they were usually drunk because I was only allowed in the bars up to the age of 11. I was allowed to perform there, but only after midnight, after last call. So by then, everybody's already drunk. I'm the singer that gets up to sing while everybody is finishing their drinks. So they could be there for an hour, 2 hours. And then I have school the next day. No kid wants to do that. I wasn't enjoying that part of it. I didn't want to be on those stages. But then the good part of it was I loved music so much that I would write music off by myself and create stories that were of faraway places, about people I never knew, and I was just making up names and characters and escaping. I think the need to escape threw me into a very wild state of imagination. And that was a skill that I was then developing without realizing it, which was to become a creative writer and really get good at it young.
In your autobiography, you write about first singing in front of your schoolmates and feeling bullied. They said, you're a show-off.
Right.
Was there a period where you felt, oh, wow, I'm good. I'm good at this. I've got talent.
You know what? When I was a kid, and very early on, I was called a show-off for singing in the choir. But that was only because I was good at it at a very young age. But then I realized that was going to bring me criticism and that I didn't want. So I didn't want to be a show-off. So I stopped singing in front of my school after that, and I saved it for when I got older. So all of my singing after that was done in bars where they weren't the other kids. So they never even knew that I was developing into a singer.
One of the songs on this album, Stranger Things, is about performing as a kid. What were you thinking writing that?
I was always writing from a northern kid's perspective a lot of the time, because I've got all of these images and things that I'm describing in the music that are about someone from a little place that is in the middle of nowhere, and it's cold and it's far from where she wants to be or where she imagines she could go. But it's a playful take on all of it, not a dark take on it all.
One of the new songs, Quit My Life. I like that one.
Oh,
Those
great.
dishes are stacked up.
That's it.
It's something I think a lot of people can identify with.
That's it. When I was younger, I was so over-responsible for the household. My mother was depressed a lot of the time. She spent a lot of her days in bed. She lived off coffee and cigarettes that I would bring her in bed just to see if she was still alive. There was a lot of violence in the house, and we didn't eat well a lot of the times. We weren't clothed properly a lot of the times.
You realize all these things you're saying are quite dramatic. You just say them like this: no food, no clothes,
Yeah,
violence.
yeah. When I reflect back on those times, I'm reflecting on them from where I am now, which is a very good place. Like, I made it out of there. So it's like, whoa, I'm just celebrating all of that. And what makes me feel so accomplished is staying connected to where I came from. It's the contrast that makes it feel so good. If you forget about the bad, you don't feel as good about the good, So it's like they belong together.
There are some pretty unbelievable things that you witnessed and had to process as a kid. Your dad was your stepfather, you called him dad.
Yeah.
Putting your mother's head in the toilet, and you'd say, I thought she was already dead, and you were yelling, stop. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine.
It is. It's terrible. I didn't really start even saying any of that out loud until I was till much, much later in my life, because I just wanted to forget about it. I wanted to forget about it. But I started realizing, wow, there's other people out there that go through this stuff that never get out of it. They're still in it. And I actually broke a cycle, a very, very critical one for myself. And to be able to say to others, look, you can break this cycle. One way to do that is to know that you're not alone. So, don't look at me and say, wouldn't it be wonderful to be her? I was those people. I was there in that dark place, in that horrible, scary place. You can get out of it. There is a way. So it's better to share, I think. It's more helpful to share. I think it's so wasted to not share.
And for you, that way out was songwriting, was music.
Yeah, music was my way out. And the spotlight was my mother's idea. Music was my idea. I would have done music, but either way. But you know what? She was right. In the end, I became the entertainer of my own music, and here I am. But it's been a long, long, long road. I wish she was still around. She never got to see the success.
For all the challenges, what strikes you is how remarkably forgiving you are of your parents.
I think any parents that are, my parents were struggling to feed us. They were my dad struggled to keep jobs for many reasons. A lot of racism still in our province at that time. My dad was Indian, And then there was also the fact that when we didn't have enough money to pay the bills, we had to move. We would just run away from the bills. So we would move towns, or we would move too far away from his work. We were really scraping by, I'm telling you. So I think they did their best. That's the way I look at it. They did their best.
You had this 15-year stretch of life where you couldn't sing. You damaged your vocal cords. Was that a identity-shaking time?
Losing the voice was like a death, but it wasn't my death. It was a death of a part of me. And I thought, okay, I may never sing again. That could be dead. But I'm a songwriter.
So it
Guess
didn't
what?
bother you?
I can still write songs.
But it didn't bother
And
you?
that's at the core. It did bother me, but it didn't kill me. Because it was like this partial death of my talent. It's like, okay, well, I can't sing the songs I'm writing anymore, but others can. And I'm like, okay, it was sort of like I just got this new spark of optimism. I'm thinking, okay, it's really bad that I can't sing them myself, because this joy now, what am I going to do with this joy? It's gone. But I'm more passionate about writing than I am about anything creative. And I just got really excited thinking, wow, there's hundreds of voices out there that I could hear my songs sung by. It's wonderful. I just thought it was this great new chapter. And I know that sounds a little, might sound a little odd, but I really did find the optimism in it. And I found a way to get excited again about music, even though I couldn't sing my own songs, pre-operation.
With your divorce, one of the things you lost was a great professional collaborator in Mutt. You've written other albums since that. How is it approaching an album, approaching music without that?
It was a long period of time before I was ready to even make another album after my divorce. The Now album is one of my favorite albums to listen to, and it gives me so much satisfaction to have written that album.
More than others?
More than others.
Because?
Because it was my climb out of the rabbit hole. So it's like, this was my climb out of the rabbit hole, Oh, the things I've written about trying to get out of that rabbit hole, and just over and over and over and over and over again. That album meant so much to me. It was critical to my, everything, to my mental health, to my wellness, my well-being in every way. And musically was a wonderful interpretation of how I was feeling. I feel like I've reached a summit every time I listen to that album.
Your parents, your mom, never got to see all the success that you've had. What do you think they would make of it?
My mother specifically would not have been surprised, I don't think, that I made it, because she was always so sure that I would. She was way more certain than I was. But I think the lifestyle is what would have, been something to adapt to for her, for both my parents. I mean, they never owned a new vehicle in their life. I mean, I'm like, I'm push starting the Chevy. It's old and it's heavy, and I'm still smaller than my guitar. These are the lyrics I'm writing in this album, Little Miss Twain. My parents had never experienced not counting pennies when we went grocery shopping. It would have been so wonderful to share with her other travel, flying somewhere. I don't think they ever flew anywhere. They never left the country. So there was so much I wanted to share with them as I started to experience life outside of our little northern town. And they would have, beyond seeing me make it, I think my mother would have just enjoyed the life she deserved, that I would have wanted to give her. It would have given me so much joy to, give her those things that she never had.
In Little Miss Twain, you sing about your mom saying, "I'm the next Tanya Tucker." Your mom
Yeah.
seemed to believe in you
She did.
very early on, and you sing about that.
Yeah, no, my mother was sure that I was going to make it someday. Very unrealistically sure, because there was no way I was going to get discovered, at the 3-star hotel in Timmins, Ontario, when I was a child. But she really thought I would be the next Tanya Tucker. And, that came and went because I didn't make it until I was in my late 20s already. So being a childhood star was not going to happen. But in her mind, she was right about the fact that I probably did have the talent that she believed in, at least. And the rest came to be without her being able to enjoy and sit there and watch me get up on a podium somewhere, accept an award, and thank her in person.